You already know more than you think. You just don't know how to read the signs yet, because every person leaves clues, and Nietzsche's 18 truths will teach you how to find them and what they mean. This is the skill no one teaches you, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. But this video isn't a quick list or surface-level advice. It's a complete breakdown divided into 3 powerful parts, each building on the last. If you skip ahead or miss one, you'll lose the depth that makes this truly work. So stay with me, because by the end of all 3 parts, you won't just understand others. You'll understand yourself in ways you never expected. From a young age, you're trained to trust what people say. Words are our currency. But Nietzsche warned us not to be fooled by language, because people don't speak from truth. They speak from survival, from ego, from fear. The surface of someone's personality is not them. It's their armor. The person who seems overly kind may not be kind at all. They may be terrified of rejection. The one who seems strong may be crumbling underneath, hoping no one notices. And what's most deceptive about humans is they don't even know they're doing it. Most people are actors in a play they didn't write. Their smiles, their opinions, their tone, all shaped by what kept them safe. And this is why most people aren't hiding from you. They're hiding from themselves. NZ once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." But he didn't mean that as an insult. He meant it as a warning to not confuse the mask with the person. Here's what no one tells you. People leak the truth all the time. Not in their words, but in the cracks. The moments they look away, the way they laugh too long, the way they quickly change the subject when it gets too close. And Nietzsche's first psychological truth is this one. Everyone wears a mask to survive, not because they're fake, but because they're scared. To survive society, people create a version of themselves they hope will be accepted. But masks aren't perfect. They slip, and the first sign of truth is tension. Watch for what makes someone uncomfortable. That's where the real person begins. 2. What someone hates in others reveals what they're hiding in themselves. This is one of Nietzsche's sharpest insights. Projection. When someone constantly mocks arrogance, they're often insecure about their own self-worth. When someone can't stop pointing out dishonesty in others, they're usually hiding a truth they haven't faced. We hate in others what we're afraid to admit in ourselves. So when you want to read someone, don't just look at what they admire. Look at what they criticize and why. 3. Silence reveals more than words. Enna didn't believe truth came from talking. In fact, he saw language as a tool of the herd, often used to avoid confronting reality. When someone pauses before answering, when they dodge certain topics, when they give short, rehearsed replies to deep questions, that silence is louder than speech. A person avoiding vulnerability is revealing everything about what they fear. 4. Excessive virtue is often disguised vanity. Be wary of the person who loudly proclaims their purity, the one always correcting others, always preaching. NZ called this the will to power in disguise. Sometimes morality becomes a mask for superiority. The louder the virtue signal, the more likely there's something being hidden behind it. Real goodness doesn't need applause. 5. People don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. This one changes everything. The lies you hear from people. I'm fine. I'm over it. I don't care. Aren't lies to hurt you. They're lies they've rehearsed so often they believe them. Nietzsche understood self-deception not as evil, but as defense. A way to keep functioning in a painful world. So when someone's story doesn't quite add up, don't assume they're trying to deceive you. Realize they've been doing it to themselves far longer. And that's what makes reading them possible, because the inconsistencies reveal the truth. 6. Where someone feels superior, they're hiding inferiority. This is pure Nietzsche. He believed that superiority is often overcompensation. If someone constantly reminds you of their accomplishments, they likely fear they're not enough. If someone puts others down casually, they're probably terrified of being overlooked.